All right, there we go. Thanks for joining us today. I'm glad you're here. I'm with my good friend Jeff Hayes, who is an accomplished musician and filmmaker and writer and talent. Someone who I've become real close with in the last 5 years, and we get to travel together sometimes and do projects together. And he's just someone that you need to follow and you need to get to know. And before we get into the details of the who's and what's you do, Jeff, we start all of these with the same weird formula of tell us 3 people, living or dead, but have had to walk the earth, not fictional characters, that you strongly admire and the character traits of them.
So first and foremost is Ben Franklin. And I have no idea why I started identifying with Ben Franklin when I was a kid. But Ben was one of the original entrepreneurs. He believed everybody should work. He was as responsible as anyone for the system of government that we have in the U.S. And it wasn't through advanced degrees. It was through practical knowledge. And so I always identified with him, but he never stopped learning. He never stopped being curious. These are the traits. He never stopped inventing and investigating. He was also a lovable rogue when it came to women, which is he was a big flirt, and he always tried to be kind. And especially at a time when this country was formed, not only was it a big fighting over, are we going to be separate from England or not? He was always a peacemaker. He was one of the last to come on board that says, no, there's nothing we can do but separate. But then once we had that set, then what type of government should we form? And this was a bitter, we talk about democracy like it was this thing that God gave us. Democracy was argued by the founding fathers, and many of them were not for democracy. Why would we let all the dummies vote? Was the view of about half of the people that form this country. And so Ben Franklin, from the time I was a kid, has been somebody that I admired, emulated, and later came to find out I had a lot of his personality characteristics. So if it's true that thoughts go into the universe and stay there, I believe I got some Ben Franklin in me.
Little pixie dust of Ben Franklin.
Yeah, he fathered enough illegitimate children that perhaps we all have a little Ben Franklin in us. Staying that old, Thomas Paine was another one from that era who was a contrarian thinker, that literally many people hated him so much when he died, they scattered his bones so even his bones wouldn't be able to rest in the same grave as punishment, because he was a deist and did not believe in the Bible, which was a very unpopular view at that time. But literally the revolution wouldn't have happened. When Washington, they weren't paying their men, and when he came out with his pamphlet that inspired common sense, that inspired the troops to keep fighting, and was really a pivotal time. And then his book about the Bible, The Age of Reason, and about Christianity was, powerful. Then went to France and helped run the revolution there. And then afterwards, because he didn't want to kill the king, they went ahead and put him in jail in France. So I like the guts and determination and sticking to his principles of that guy. And then since I was a kid, I have identified with Thomas Edison, and later I've evolved that on my business card, and you've seen on the front of my building is a picture of Nikola Tesla. And so I kind of have merged those two enemies into one personality that I want to to emulate, but it's the inventiveness and the creativeness and the never stopping when presented with an obstacle. Um, so let's say my third one will be um, the invisible love child of Tesla and Edison.
That seems fair because we're after the character traits anyway, so that's good. You know, it's funny when Ben Franklin was, he probably is like the fourth on my list. But when I was a kid, one of the first, I'll say novella because I didn't read novels when I was a kid, but for a kid, it was a thick book. And it was called Amos and Me. And it was a story, it was a kid's book, but it was a story of Ben Franklin as told from a mouse that lived with him and observed his life from this third party. And it really did, it made those tales tellable to a child, but I very much related to him as well. And he was a funny person. He had a whole lot of really robust personality traits that were very, very likable and affable. As do
and
you.
yeah, he was a big wine drinker. So that was another. But I love the idea of telling his life through the eyes of a mouse. I have a friend who produced a show that was the biography of Roy Rogers, as told through the eyes of Trigger, and
Fantastic.
That's the part that made it interesting.
Yeah, yeah. As opposed to the Sons of the Pioneers, but
yes.
Let's talk a little bit about your work and your kind of the path, because you started you've zigged and zagged a few times in your career, and you're not shy. One of the things I love about you is you're not shy to talk about how many business failures you've had and how many things have gone south for you in life. And here you are, a mentor of mine, and you're still here rocking and rolling with a very positive attitude and framework. Let's talk about that history, and then let's get to how do you go from this isn't working so well to pivot to, well, we got to do this then, without getting too bogged down in the this ain't working so well.
Yeah. So even zigzag is too mild a term for there's just no way to do my career path and have it make any sense whatsoever, where you look at it and go, yeah, that was a logical next step. It was, there were illogical leaps, so but the characteristic that you're talking about is resilience. And my mentor used to tell me, Jeff, success is a matter of how much pain can you take before you get discouraged and quit. And I was thinking about that. I don't want that to be true, but it is. The love of my life, Dory, we were talking the other day, and everyone says marriage is hard work. And we're discovering that marriage is not hard work. Actually, marriage is easy if you're married to the right person, with this caveat. And the caveat is it takes effort, but it's not work. And she used as an example, she's got a 91-year-old friend, and she takes her to lunch. Matter of fact, this very minute, she's taking
Ruth she takes her lunch on Fridays, right?
She takes her to lunch on Friday. This very minute, she's taking Ruth to lunch. And Ruth has a walker, and Dory drives over and picks her up. And it's like 15 minutes, on the times I've taken them to lunch, I'm impatient as heck. I'm waiting, and for Ruth to get from her front door through the garage to the car, and then loading Ruth into my car is a low car, loading Ruth into the car, it's like a 15-minute deal. And then to get her into the restaurant, and then, and so he talks about like how much she loves Ruth and how much she loves, and it's not work to take Ruth to lunch, but it does require effort. And so I look back at my entrepreneurial career, a lot of it was work, but that was usually when I was on the wrong path. Right. When you're on the right path, it suddenly stops being work, starts becoming effort. And the glue that holds you together between work and just effort is resilience. So, then the question becomes, okay, where does resilience come from? And unfortunately, in my observation, resilience comes from difficulty. And we try to raise our kids without the difficulty we have. And when we do that, we end up raising kids that don't have resilience. I was at an organic farm one time filming in Wisconsin, and they sprouted their plants in a greenhouse, and then they take all the plants and put them behind the greenhouse because they need them to be exposed to the wind and let the wind buffet them. And they're 2 days to get beat by the wind. And then they plant them. And in that part of the country, the water table, there's water about 2 feet deep. And they don't water the plants to force the plants to have to grow roots 2 feet deep to get water. And so I asked them, well, what happens if there's no wind and those plants get thrown away because they're not resilient enough to survive and they'll never grow? And so this is a scary metaphor for the generations that we raise without difficulty. So, my path went through a lot of difficulty. My sister's a psychologist. She says she and I should be, by looking at our path, we should be drug addicts or in jail or somewhere, but somehow we had this piece of resilience that I'm so grateful for.
I was talking to my mom about this last night. My mom's in her mid-70s, and part of that framework was, since like the boomers arrived, since the end of World War II, the beginning of the 50s or 60s, we had Vietnam. We've had some things that I would say were important, powerful, and incidental in our history. But really, you get to 1970 and beyond that, there hasn't been anything that was really terrifically gut-wrenching in a global sphere of things. And 9/11 was a little bit of a wake-up call and ringing the bell, not to diminish anything that happened on 9/11, but when you look at statistically the general populace of the planet versus the individuals affected immediately by the pain of those events. And we've got more and more technology and things that just make us soft. And what is that? Where is the resilience? And I think one of the things that I, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that I hear in what you're saying is on the other side of resilience as well, there's purpose. That's what makes it effort and not work, is that you're doing something that you feel is purposeful. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'm trying to process that word as you say it. And it's probably the closest word. I mean, all our words are lies. It's the best thing that we can use to communicate. But like, it is no difficulty for me to serve Dory. And it is not, and it's the purpose behind it. My purpose for her every day is safety, comfort, and joy. And that's what I want her to experience every day, is safety, comfort, and joy. My therapist pointed out that after about the 50th time I told her safety, comfort, and joy for Dory, she says, you realize that's what you want.
Right.
And of course, I'm projecting my wants onto Dory, and Dory provides me with safety, comfort, and joy. And as long as we're doing that, there's a purpose beyond that is founded in love. But as long as that's our purpose, decisions are so easy. Will this bring her joy?
Well, I want to put a little bit of a frame for the folks around who you are, what you do, and how the current situation with Dory and you getting married and all of that. But let's back up a little bit. First of all, tell us a little bit about how you got into documentary filmmaking. Jeff is one of the preeminent documentary filmmakers in the United States, and he does these amazing series wherein most of us, and I've made a couple documentaries that do that, try to create a piece that's 90 minutes to 2 hours long, and it conveniently truthfully sells an opinion, and it sells an opinion in a soft way. Jeff has a more exploratory technique that he makes. He's really kind of one of the inventors of this thing called the docu-series, which other people that do that in the world might be Ken Burns. Is that a fair? You say by career, that's another person who does this. But talk about that, and if you don't mind setting up the framework of your mom, then how you got into this career, then a little bit about Charlie, and then a little bit about where you are now.
Okay, the life story. Well, my mom died when I was 11 years old of cancer, which was shockingly, kids are shockingly naive. I didn't know she was dying. And back then, 50 years ago, they didn't tell kids generally, your mom's dying. They wanted us to live our lives. And so the first I knew my mom was dying was when my dad woke me up and said, your mom passed away last night. And I loved my mom as much as you love your mom, as anybody, loves their mom. I was just a kid. And so it was a rude awakening. And then my dad, unbeknownst to me, had apparently had a girlfriend because she moved into the house 2 weeks later, and they were married a couple of months after that. And so because of, I guess, his guilt over that, they kind of erased all evidence of my mom. And I was, my sadness was a reminder, was evidence of my mom, and they kind of erased that also. So I had this big bundle of sadness and betrayal that I didn't have anybody to share it with. So I locked it away, only to really discover it 50 years later. So then I dropped out of high school early. I was living on my own when I was 15. Worked in a recording studio. I'm sitting in the control room, as Ron, you recognize. I'm sitting in the control room of the recording studio that I own now.
Well, Jeff has actually a phenomenal facility that's a recording studio and film studio right in this kind of in the center of Salt Lake. So and it's quite a facility. This
was a gift to my 17-year-old self. So I was in that business at 17. This was a dream when I was 17 years old that really had no place to put it. And then, like all documentarians, I became a door-to-door encyclopedia salesman at 18. Film school, selling encyclopedias, door-to-door. What's the difference?
Hey, if you can do direct sales, like all these guys that are in Cutco Knives that I know, it's such a great way to learn how to just connect with people.
And connect fast, and to the doors you get in are a fraction of the number of doors that you knock on. And so it was just more good resilience training. I bought my first Cadillac when I was 18 years old, being a door-to-door encyclopedia salesman. Within a year, it had been repossessed, so I wasn't that great of a
It reminds me of the movie Tin Men.
Yeah. Oh, it was. Yeah. Do you remember him telling his wife, "What do you need? My problem is overhead. What do you need all this space for? I mean, we stay in the kitchen. Why do we need a living room? We could cut that out." This was. I married at 20 and had 4 kids by the time I was 25, and we got divorced when I was 30. And I got custody of the children. So you talk about attractive. I was a 30-year-old single dad of 4. By then I had been a stockbroker and owned an investment banking firm and a brokerage firm and was wealthy. And so I made my kids in public call me Rich Uncle Jeff. I'm telling them, look, guys, I'm never going to meet you, Mom, if you're tailing me with your snotty noses hollering daddy. So that has continued. I still have some grandkids that for fun call me Rich Uncle Jeff, but
that's it's hysterical.
I then married a woman who had 2 children, and who I adopted, and one of them, my son Charlie, my adopted son Charlie, had medullary thyroid cancer, And so he lived 5 years longer than he was supposed to, but he died at age 12. I thought my role was going to be to support Susan through the loss of her son. I never imagined that I would genuinely love him. And it was really an absurd thing to do. I remember when I realized I was in over my head, oh my gosh, I love this kid my like my own son. He referred to the day that I adopted him as, and he used to say, "Remember that day I adopted Dad?" And it was that a precious relationship, and of course devastating when he passed away 24 years ago at age 12. And so, if I knew anything, I knew I would not ever love anybody who had cancer. And in fact, I later came to discover I believed that I never really fully loved anyone because I believed everyone I loved would die, which turns out to be true. Everyone that you love dies, and everyone you don't love also dies. So it really, you can either be in the game, but you can't escape the reality that that's the ending point.
Yeah, we were talking to Jamie Wheel yesterday, and I mean, one of the things that and I think this might have come up with Canfield a couple of weeks ago too, is like it's true of us too as well. We have this part of us inside of us that says, "Oh no, death is something that happens to everybody else." And the minute you realize, you know what, I'm on, and this is one of the things I appreciate about you, and we've talked about this. That I look at life as every day is a gold coin. It's really super valuable, and the world's like this amazing arcade. And if you divide your coins, you know, if you live a long time, you know, you're not guaranteed 3 days or 33,000, but if you live a long time, you live 33,000 days. And if you just divide those into 7 piles that say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and spend them all exactly the same every week, you should catch yourself because you're convincing yourself that you're going to live forever. And then some event happens, somebody else dies, or there's a world crisis or something. You go, what happened? Oh, nope, I'm going back to Bunko on Wednesday night. I'm going back to pizza on Thursday night. And it's our way of convincing ourselves that we have immortality that the other part of us says, that's not true. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. And that's what I appreciate about you is you split your coins up and you spin one in a different one of these machines pretty much every day. You're always doing something different.
I'm all in. Yeah, you're describing to me, I was thinking of the Warren Buffett diet, where Warren Buffett, and of course, he's not known as one of the world's fittest guys, but his diet is he gives himself 1 million calories a year, and 1 million calories a year divided by 365 days, and he can't go over it. I think if I was to do that, I would probably be out of calories by March, and then
when he eats a lot of Big Macs too.
Yes,
he eats at McDonald's every day, doesn't he?
And drinks Coca-Cola,
which is just poison on top of poison.
He's a shareholder.
Wow, yeah, he's a shareholder. That's a great way of looking at it.
When I was a stockbroker, I had 2 buddies. One, my friend Red, who was also a high school dropout, and one was my friend Jim Rennert, who was a big wrestler, state champion wrestler, hands like ham hocks. And we're talking, and they're like, man, we all knew we weren't put on this earth to be stockbrokers. What are we supposed to do? And I said, well, I want to be a filmmaker. And Red said, I want to be a pilot. And Red's a high school dropout, remember, as am I. And then Jim said, I'm a sculptor. And we look at Jim like, and one of them looked at me and goes, well, how do you make movies? I'm like, I don't know, but I see them. Somebody makes them. And now you flash forward 30 years. Red is the chief pilot of Spirit Airlines, has been a pilot for a long time for several airlines. Jim Rennert is in the National Gallery of Art, and his primary
amazing sculptor.
Yeah, we were just in Naples, Florida, and I'm driving down the street, and I see a monolithic sculpture. We pass it, and I go, well, that's a Jim Rennert. And then turns out there's another one, and sure enough, there was a big real estate investor that bought 4 of his monolithic sculptures, 5 of them, and installed them on Fifth Avenue in Naples, Florida, for the city to enjoy. and then I've been shortlisted for an Academy Award in film. And so these three guys, who is the unlikeliest three you could ever pick, called their shot in their 30s and somehow hit the mark.
Yeah, but I think that that story of audacious, stupid goals is pretty useful. Like you don't realize how often the universe is conspiring to give you what you want, because you were delivered here to do something, not to just be just to exist, to actually, hey, be fruitful and multiply, and whatever that means for you. And the folks that I have known in my life, like yourself, that simply take action, get the effect. And no, it's not instant. It can be a struggle, but you will be, there's probably another 282 people that were in your high school that are like, oh, those three lucky guys. But they sat on the bench when they got to life. They were probably stars in high school, but they didn't take any steps to do something stupid and audacious and fun and risky. And I think that's an admirable trait, whether it's ignorance or, arrogance. I don't really care.
Yeah. In my case, it was more ignorance, and then maybe an equal amount of arrogance, to say, I can do this. Is a combination of both, but it's a joy-filled ride. I often think of people who work all week at a job they hate and live for the weekends, and then they will have a boat, and then they pack all the fun they can in the weekend, so they because they know I'm back at the grind on Monday, and I am looking forward. Weekends, by Sunday night, I am ready to be back in the game. I enjoy a break, but it's I work when I'm on vacation, not because I need to, but because this is what my work is thinking, and
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, it's like, did F. Scott Fitzgerald take a day off? Probably not. I don't think. Hemingway didn't take a day off. He climbed Kilimanjaro. He was still Hemingway on Kilimanjaro, right? It's and I appreciate that. And I early in my life, I certainly had the day-to-day type grind jobs where I was working Monday through Friday. If I was lucky, I was working Monday through Friday. In the grocery business, it was weekends a lot, and I would have that frustration. But it wasn't related to that business. It was related to me not fulfilling what I wanted to do, I guess, artistically.
Yes.
Is that a fair word?
I often tell people, people pull me to the side and tell me, by the way, I'm writing a book right now, or I want to do a movie, or I'm doing, and I always tell them, creativity unexpressed becomes depression. And it doesn't matter if you're working in a grocery store, you're working if you have that calling, you better listen to it, and don't let it drive you into the poorhouse, but make it a part of your life.
Well, and in the midst of that, people will observe and make their own guesses about what your life is like from the outside. And I've been told many, many times, you're so lucky. Which there's some truth to that. There's some truth to that, but not in the way that they intend it. And my answer is typically, you should follow me around for 2 days and see how lucky I am.
That's it. It's so true. And my business partner, Patrick, every time I say, dang, we're so lucky, and he always corrects me to use the word fortunate. But whichever word I choose, I am one of the luckiest guys you've ever met. And it doesn't mean I haven't had to earn, every step of the way, but it's still, I'm so lucky to get to play this game.
And a lot of tough things happen along the way. Well, walk me through the kind of the library that's out there that people can access for the moment. And I'm not wrapping this up by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, I'll talk to you as long as you'll let me talk to you.
It's hard to access anything from me. And it's in the, so the name of my company is Jeff Hayes Films. And there's kind of a an overview on my website of what I've done. But what we discovered, and it makes it hard for me to do any sort of self promotion. The good news is I'm not selling anything, so I don't have to do much self promotion.
Right.
But what we discovered, so I did some documentary films, and that we sold to studios and was in the traditional business. I did one last year that we sold to a traditional studio. I'm doing a docu-series that will release traditionally through HBO or Netflix, one of the streamers. That's a New York Times best-selling book, but I don't make any money on those. We found this really interesting niche in doing initially controversial docuseries. So we did one on vaccines, we did one on GMOs. I've done them on stem cell treatments, and we've done them on money, on wealth. We're filming one right now in the studio on the other side of the glass wall, behind this camera. We're filming 5 interviews today on one called Endgame that's basically on preparation. We just finished one on psychedelics called Psychedelics Revealed, where we interviewed experts at Johns Hopkins and people from MAPS. And you mentioned Jamie Wheel. Jamie Wheel is in that series. And I was immediately embarrassed when you said you were talking to Jamie Wheel yesterday. He is so flippin' smart that it'd probably be better for this interview if we just play Jamie's a second time and I nod. The guy speaks literally, he speaks with literary preciseness. Like his verbal communication, you could print it and it could be a book. Good grief, that guy's smart.
Yeah, we're thinking of having Daniel Schmachtenberger on next, so this will just no one will ever see this one.
It's like a mountain with a deep valley in between. I'm doing a series that we've just got one interview left. We've done about 60 interviews called The Millionaire Within Her, that is all about women and money. And this is because I did a series called Money Revealed and had 45 to 50 people in it, of which I had one female and the rest were all men. And my female friends just barbecued me, going, where are the women in this? I'm like, oops, I forgot. And so our response to that was to do The Millionaire Within Her, which is just brilliant. But what makes these hard to find is we've become really good marketers. And the way we market them is we put them online for a limited period of time. And we'll show episode 1 and people can watch it for free. And then it's replaced 24 hours later with episode 2. And they can watch the whole thing for free. The good news for me is about 8 to 12% of the people who watch it end up buying it. And
like a library, like an encyclopedia set.
It's because, and so it's a really trust-based model. I know if I do good work and people can see it, I'm not asking them to trust me. Give me your money first and I'll show you what I've made. We show it to them, and then as their trust goes up, then they're willing to purchase it because they want it for their library.
Well, they know they're getting knowledge from it. These are, and I think that's one of the things that's brilliant about this. Like I said earlier, like most people make a documentary and they sell their perspective on a topic, but you're selling, 30 or 40 experts, actual career knowledge distilled into these segments that you can't help but get smarter and know more about each topic by diving into it.
And they don't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we just did an interview this morning with Peter Schiff, who's absolutely brilliant. And Peter Schiff says, don't touch Bitcoin. It's worthless. It's useless. And we've got 3 interviews yesterday of people that are Bitcoin millionaires living in Puerto Rico, spending their days surfing because they made so much money in Bitcoin and are putting everything in Bitcoin. And I feel like if I can present, then the viewer can go, okay, wait a minute, yeah, Bitcoin's the greatest thing. And they hear Peter Schiff and go, wait a minute, maybe I better look at, but the data is all there for you to be able to make your own decision instead of based on following one guru. But
so it's learning how to think, not what to think.
What makes this work is the fact that we make them disappear afterwards. If I put a 10 episode series on YouTube, the people that want to see it would never get around to it. So the fact that we make it disappear, so it does make, people go, where can I see something that you've done? I need to do some that are just throwaways that we can just leave up. So people, we do usually leave episode 1 of all of our series on YouTube so people can find Money Revealed or GMOs Revealed or all of those. Usually they can find episode 1 on YouTube.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, on a separate call, you and I should talk about that because I think there's probably a way to do that whets the appetite in a regular old-fashioned marketing way for stuff that you may have gone stale in your library. But curving back to, you just did The Answer to Cancer?
Yeah, I spent 1.5 years filming The Answer to Cancer, where we interviewed, there's been people tend to fall into 2 camps. You're either for alternative and against traditional, or you're against traditional treatment or all alternative, no. And what we found was, for people that are dealing with cancer, you really have to protect yourself and you have to avail yourself of everything that's out there. And so my Dory has stage 4 ovarian cancer. And this was so useful in filming this series, in that I know the world's best experts on cancer, from Nobel Prize winning Jim Allison, who won the Nobel Prize in immunotherapy or for immunotherapy in 2018 at one end of the spectrum, to Ralph Kleef in Vienna, Austria, who's been, pilloried and for doing a type of treatment in Vienna that you can't get anywhere but there in Switzerland and Germany, that is, saving countless lives. And so having that broad spectrum has been life-changing, as we deal with Dory's stage 4 ovarian cancer. And it spectacular series.
And dealing with stage 4 ovarian cancer while you're planning a wedding.
Yeah, while we're planning a wedding. And she is, it's just a different view. She has 70 trillion healthy cells and a few renegades that we're having to deal with. So we, Dory is a yoga teacher. She was my trainer. We've been friends for 24 years. And like close friend, we've hiked these mountains in Utah for 20 years, at least 5 to 10 hours a week for that time period. And she, when she was on chemo, she could finish chemo and 2 days later still out hike me. So this is, it's an irritation, but our goal is that it's an irritation that we deal with for the next 30 years.
Yeah, and I was actually at your house last Friday in Utah, and we were working in the morning. You and I went into your studio to go to an event that was being filmed there, and she went out with her friend, this 90-year-old lady, and took her to lunch. Not, I hadn't seen Dory in a couple months just because of COVID and flying and this, that, and the other thing, and came back, and she was hustling, making dinner, and like zero interruptions for this woman. And you're like, are you sure that you have cancer? Shouldn't you sit down? And she's like, nope, I'm living my life, baby. And the mindset that's associated with that, you can see why she's a survivor and going to continue to be. just because of the way that she's wired. And I think when you talk about the different treatments, remedies, protocols for cancer, but you could relate this to the crypto thing or to anything, is that we all have this way, this path through that is kind of custom fit for us, that the game becomes what we want it to become. And I don't know if that's true. I'm getting to that point in my life, in my mid-50s here, where I'm going, boy, I'm not sure that there is one way through this maze. It feels like there's about 8 billion ways through this maze for the 8 billion creatures that are trying to do it right now.
Yeah, the key for me is designing your own life. If you don't design it, someone else already has. And one time in a previous marriage, my spouse, who is a wonderful person, but she believes life is hard. And she comes from a religion that life is hard. And she was frustrated with me, and she said, well, you just make your life the way you want it to be. You just design your life to be the way you want it to be. And she was saying this as if it was something wrong. And I'm like, yes, I design my life the way I want it to be. And this comes from everything from, many times having a full-time cook. I have a lot of staff. I don't run errands. And I don't move myself. Like if I'm, I hire movers, where I have other friends that would never spend the money on a mover, but they may enjoy that type thing. And so I know the things that I like, and I know the things that I'm good at, and I double or triple down on those. And I love to eliminate things that I'm tolerating, not good at, the things that make me feel bad about myself, the things that show my incompetence. If I had to re-roof my house, it would be easier for me to buy a new house.
Right.
I'm scared of heights. I'm not good with nails. I don't imagine how I would get those shingles up to the top of the, sorry, we're going to have to move.
I'm scared of widths. So I can get on the roof, no problem, but the desert scares the shit out of me. Like if it's big, flat.
Way too wide.
It's just too wide. It's too calm and too wide.
You're afraid you're going to take off and run.
I don't even know what to do. I just feel like I want to grab some scissors and just start running.
Yeah. The advice, if I was to convert this into advice, one of my kids, it would be, okay, find out what brings you joy. Find out what brings you joy that you do well enough that you add value to the tribe by doing it. And then, man, double down on that. And all the stuff that you're bad at, I've given up on strengthening my weaknesses. I'll buff off the rough edges of my weaknesses, but I want to play to my strengths. I want to do what I'm good at, and I want to, and then my joy is when my talents are recognized and utilized for the benefit of me and the people around me.
Yeah, I think that's where the joy comes in. If it's selfishly done, it doesn't feel good. But if you know that you're benefiting other folks while you do it, then it really truly, like, we have moments of happiness, moments of sadness, but you can live in pretty consistent joy if you're purposeful and you're doing something that goes to help the tribe, so to speak.
Yeah,
my opinion.
I was wealthy enough when I was 30 to have a jet, and it was a small jet, but it was a jet. And all of my buddies were not anywhere near me in terms of income. And so, we'd go skiing and would jump in the jet and fly from Texas to Colorado or Utah to go skiing. But I felt the loneliness of succeeding alone. And it is not, a lot of the joy is out of it. And so, and now I like succeeding as a group. I like, your successes, Ron, feel as good to me as mine. It is, envy doesn't it doesn't come natural to me. I'm inspired by other people's success. And that, when we can succeed and carry others along with us that are genuinely rooting for us, that just amplifies the joy.
Well, and you create that around yourself. I know your staff. I've got to experience them both in a work environment and a play environment. And they're not people that work for you that have a job. They're people that want to be there, that enjoy each other as much. And there's no real sense of hierarchy. There's more a sense of tribalism, and this is what we're doing right now. But there's joy in that with everybody. And you're extremely generous to them and with your time, with your energy. One of the things that kind of mystified me about you, because I've been fortunate enough to meet an awful lot of people and be, one at a time, and you probably did it the same way. But that's what my question for you next is, how did you build this absolutely insane network of people? Because we can sit at your dinner table and you have met everybody.
That's kind of my goal before it's over. I would like to. I remember my first airplane ride when I was 17, and I took off. I was on Braniff Airlines, and we took off, and I was in New Orleans, and we took off from New Orleans, and I'm seeing all the houses in Slidell, Louisiana below me, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm thinking, wow, inside of every one of those houses is someone with a story. And I had this overwhelming sadness that I would not get to hear their story. I could just picture the guy. He'd just come in from work. He sits down, his wife's putting dinner on the table. He's got a story. And I was sad that I didn't get to hear his story. So I genuinely like people. I like smart people better than dumb people. I have some prejudices that I wish I could get rid of. I like smart people better than dumb people. I like people that are doing interesting things versus people that are not doing interesting things. And if I grow more as a human, I'll find more to relate to other people. But so I seek out. When people ask this, it's like you can do this on purpose. You can make contacts, but the key is to not go into it for what you can get out of it. It's what you go into it with what you can put into it. Can I provide value to this person? And I have a couple of people, and I'm sure people like them also, Ron, where they'll call me out of the blue and say, "Hey, I just wanted to call and see how I can serve you." And although I appreciate what they're trying to do, that has never been valuable to me. It's like when Charlie died, I had 15 people, 100 people call me and say, "Let me know if I can do anything." I had one lady from church who came over and mowed my grass without me asking her to. And I came home and the grass was mowed, and I later found out who did it. That was valuable. Of all the 100 people that said, "Hey, let me know if I can do anything," there's not one of them I would said, "Hey, would you mow my grass?"
Yeah.
There were the people that just did it. And so if I know somebody that can help you, you don't have to ask me to introduce you. I'm going to introduce you. If I can add value, I'm going to do it. And that's just the water I swim in. That's the air I breathe.
Well, and you attract that too, because I just introduced you to somebody the other day, just based on knowing you and what you do. And I'm like, oh, he's doing this project. You're a smart guy, and you've been very successful in this part in Asia, in this part of the world. He probably doesn't have this piece to this puzzle. You guys should meet. And I bet you that there's a lot of friends like me that introduce you.
And I had an hour phone call with him last night where he's in Singapore. And so it was at 7:00 at night. What was interesting, because it was 7:00 in the morning for him when we had the call, I wanted to find out, great, what happened overnight, since it's tomorrow for you. I thought he could fill me in on what was coming up in the next 12 hours. But man, what a brilliant guy. And I literally made a page full of notes today off of one thing that I learned from him.
He is extremely brilliant and as nice as the day is long, and not in a patsy way. He's in a purposeful way. He's a super dude. So I'll be really excited to see that come to life. But,
and he was a Jamie Wheel type where you go, wow, what a deep well of brilliance. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, no problem. I just find it's funny. Jamie and I talked about this for a moment yesterday. I had a call with a person in the political sphere this week, and they heard about Intellihelp. And by the way, I should thank you publicly. Jeff has been a huge financial donor to Intellihelp and has fed many, many families on this network. So thank you for that, sir.
Hey,
thank you to those families.
Thank you for reminding me to do that. And we'll send you another check just because you brought it up.
Oh, well, I'm blushing. Thank you. And it takes a lot to make me blush. By
the way, can I talk about that for a second?
Sure.
So something I do, I was taught as a kid to not talk about your giving, and that if you want the reward in heaven, you give in secret. And I decided I don't want my reward in heaven. I want other rewards in heaven. I'll take my rewards here, but I talk openly about my giving because I want other entrepreneurs to do this. But one of the biggest joys that Dory and I have is we tithe. And so we tithe into a savings account that I have, and 10%, like last night on my iPhone, I was looking at money that had come in this week, and I do this probably twice a week as money comes in. 10% goes into this savings account. And then I put 10% into my personal savings and 10% into a giving account. And so money is there, and it's just sitting there. And so, like when you mentioned Intellihelp, I'm like, okay, it's been a while since I've written a check, and I can say, okay, I'll send a check, and it doesn't come out of my bank. It comes out of this savings account that's already there, that anytime I feel the urge to write a check on any donation, I don't have to question, can I afford it? Should I do it? And it doesn't matter what my other accounts are doing. It's in my giving account. And it makes it easy. The moment you feel emotionally reminded to help somebody, the money is already there. And so to heck with giving in secret, I loudly and proudly encourage everyone to do that. Don't wait till you're a multimillionaire to start giving. You cannot outgive the universe. Anybody can do 10%. And once you set it aside, it doesn't belong to you anymore. And you can give and experience the joy. And my belief is that it comes back. So anyway.
No, I did greatly appreciate, and I appreciate that philosophy, and I've talked about this on other occasions in the business world. One of the things when you're starting a company or any venture is getting the first investors. And then one of the techniques we often use is we get 15, 20 people in a room because you're trying to get a kid to jump in the pool. And if you're not in the business world, this will be new to you. If you are, you've heard this 100,000 times, but investors are kind of like kids sitting around a pool, and nobody jumps in until somebody jumps in, and then everybody jumps in. But it takes that first kid to, buck up and jump in the ice water. And I know that you've done that in your business life, and I appreciate you doing it here because you really were one of the first people that went, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do this in a public way, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
super useful.
This is my business mentor, David Nemelka, had a deal with me. Jeff, I will always be your first investor. He said, the only hard check to get is the first one. And so literally time after time, I'd come up with some harebrained idea and he'd write me a check for 100 grand as the first investor, because I generally always needed to raise $1 million. And I always was able to say, we've already got 100 grand from a seasoned investor. And once you get rid of the first one, then the dominoes start to fall.
Yeah, that's amazing. And super useful. And that in every scale of business. And it's the first customer too, in any business. It's there's someone at the front of the line that makes the business happen every time. And we think we've all been to that restaurant where the $1 bill or the $10 bill is pinned to behind the register. It's a very similar principle. So let's talk about what's going forward this year for you guys, and what you have a wedding coming up. You have a new project that you're doing, and I only bringing this up because I was bragging about you yesterday to Jamie with Amy Redford and Summer Phoenix, because we had that weird River Phoenix connection.
Yes. Yeah. So that starts filming Monday is day one of that shoot. Amy Redford is directing, and Summer Phoenix is starring. And this is a traditional movie. And, today, cast and crew, while we're sitting here, are being COVID tested. They'll be tested daily. There's a lot of rules in filming. And so there's a beautiful film studio in Park City. And so we're based there for this. It's where they shot Yellowstone, the Kevin Costner TV series. All the interiors are shot at these Park City studios, and so that movie is set up there. And great.
Can you
fun.
tell what? Can you talk about it or say what it is? I didn't even ask you that when I was with you.
It's kind of a suspense drama, and so it's not one of mine that has meaning and purpose in terms of the meaning and purpose of this is great entertainment, great script. Yeah. And this was also a time where Amy is a dear friend of mine, and for this project, I was I'm the executive producer and producer on it, and I was the first money in the project. And it was my way of telling Amy that I love her and believe in her, and that she'll make. She's a great director, and but voting with substance. And my financial partner on this is a billionaire, so it ended up making a great contact through Amy with a powerful financial force. So it really was, because it's a good script, because she's a great director, and taking a bet on a friend. So that one's starting.
Is it sold yet? Does it have distribution yet?
No, we do these two different ways. Sometimes I'll develop a project and go sell it and get the money to make it, and you take a much reduced upside. And then sometimes we'll finance them, make them, and then go sell it. And on that basis, you have, instead of making 20% of the budget, you make 2 or 3 times the amount of the budget when you sell it. And so we had enough confidence in this project that we decided to make it and then sell it. I really couldn't make a living on selling it first.
Right.
When you do that, you basically are turning yourself into an employee.
Yeah, and I've known folks that have done that, like sold rights in different countries one at a time, piecemeal to finance something. But I was curious because for folks that are watching that don't know anything about the movie business, distribution is the key to the movie business. If nobody sees your movie, you lose money. If people see your movie, you've got a hell of a chance of making really good money. So that's what was the question behind the question, so to speak, is where are we going with this? But that's a good gamble then. You've got good people associated with it.
The one thing that's cool is doing it here in Utah is we do have a 25% tax credit. So 25% of your budget comes from the state of Utah. And so we are utilizing the tax credit on this film.
That ain't bad.
It does.
That's a big chunk of budget. So let's go back to a little bit to the beginning of, let's talk to the person who's probably come out of high school, come out of college into this COVID world. They're between 18 and 26 years old. And the social airbag has gone off in their future at the moment. It's like, what would you say to somebody with the experience and knowledge that you have over a lifetime of successes, but of hardships at the same time? What kind of advice could you give somebody who is young and just starting out in the work world or in the business world or the entrepreneurial world, to something that's actionable that they can do, or something that's actionable about how they can feel?
So when I was in my 20s, my late 20s, I went to what I thought was a business meeting here in Utah. I was living in Texas at the time, but the meeting was in Utah. And for some reason, all the multi-level companies in the world start in Utah. I mean, there's 70 of them along I-15 from, so New Skin. I mean, all of the, some very large ones. And there was a meeting I thought was a business meeting, and it turned out to be a multi-level pitch. And I said something about it being the stupidest idea I've ever heard, and, left the room. And a friend of mine, a guy named Ken Porter, said, I'm going to do this. And then he proceeded to build a career in multi-level marketing of all things, that with that company that night, here 30 years later, he's gone on to many other companies and been the number one distributor in some very large ones. But that company that night, he still makes $10,000 a month. And it would be 3 times that if he was active in it. But he's still making $10,000 a month 30 years later over what he built then. And I talked to him about 5 or 6 years ago, and he was telling me his advice for an entrepreneur is he started lots of other businesses. Before you do anything, build a residual income for yourself, so then you can take risk after risk and you're never risking everything. I've seen lots of other people do it in real estate, where they've gone out and worked hard for 4 or 5 years and acquired properties that they rent out that are cash flow positive, and they take care of their most basic needs where they can never go broke. And then they can take whatever entrepreneurial risks they want, but they're never going to lose their house, their car, consequent. So
we're gonna have Justin Donald on in a couple of weeks. He's a friend of ours, the lifestyle investor, just wrote that book, The Lifestyle Investor, to talk about how just a newbie in business can go from zero to creating residual income in the space of a couple of years without any magic. Like, this can be done.
It can be, yes. And where the multi-level version of it, to me, still has an element of magic in it, because I've seen people try and fail, people try and succeed. So there's if whatever it is, if my advice to my children in their 20s is like, look, build a residual and build your base that will take care of you for a long time. And instead of making that your job, where I expect my job to take care of it, build an income, a residual income, and then you can take whatever risk, including if, we're going to go to France for a year and study historical French art. Great, if that's what you want to do. And so putting these underpinnings in place first, and then I would follow the career path that I took of investigating everything. Like I said, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I spend my days interviewing experts on topics that I'm interested in. I get to talk to people that I'm keenly interested in, what their expertise is, like this podcast where you get to talk to people that
I wish I could do that.
Yeah. So maybe that's it. Start a podcast and invest in getting it to succeed, so you can talk to all of the people that have the knowledge and experience that you want to avail yourself of.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that folks don't realize is everything is within your reach. You just can't see through the fog that it's within your reach. And there's incremental things that you can do today that will definitely pay off, and you can lead a completely different life within 5 years, but you're going to have to take some action. It's not going to come to you through the fog. You're going to have to step towards it. It doesn't step towards you, but it starts moving towards you as you step towards it, which is the weird thing.
What you want in the universe wants you to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, was there anything I didn't ask you or that we didn't talk about that we should?
I don't think so. It's funny. This has been a less practical conversation than you and I. I mean, usually we're talking about marketing brilliance thing. It's and for some reason it may be because my John Lynn call last night. I'm still I wrote a whole page on the word trust and building a trust organization and building a trust culture. And so maybe I'm a little more philosophical today than normal. But if anybody was to take any piece of what I said that has survived this long of this interview, it would be to contribute 10% of their income, because it's one of the most fun things to do, and anybody can afford to do it.
And it comes back to you in many, many, many ways.
I'll take the reward right then, because it's just a joy to do it.
Yeah. All right, Doctor. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you. I'm off to go drive my pickup truck out into the country and put up a tent for the weekend.
That's my idea of heaven, as long as the tent is in a Four Seasons hotel.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of a mint on the pillow kind of guy, but we're going to do it right. All right. I appreciate you. Send my best to Dory and to your team, and I'm sure that I will be talking to you very soon.
Yeah, we'll see you.